At this point, pretty much everyone knows that Link is the main character from The Legend of Zelda, but across the many games, more often than not, you're playing as a completely different person and character who also happens to be named Link. So today we're going to rank the many versions of Link from The Legend of Zelda. Hey, what's going on? It's Ryan from Game Essays. If you're new to this channel, we are all about covering some of my favorite game series, including The Legend of Zelda and Pokemon. We sprinkle in some other games from time to time as well, but I have plenty of Zelda rankings and some Pokemon ranking videos, so if you're into that sort of thing, make sure to check out some of the other videos, and if you enjoy this content, please make sure to like and subscribe. But today we are getting into the many versions of Link, right? So as I said in the beginning, Link is always the main character of most Zelda games, right? Aside from some oddball games like the Tingle game and some of the CDI games, but for the most part, Link is your main character, but it's not always the same Link. I'll explain which Links, when we get to each one. The word Link is going to come up a lot. I'm just going to tell you right now. But I'll explain what games they are from, like which ones have the same Link. There's one that's a little bit disputed, but I'm going to kind of stand by my stance on that when it comes to the Oracle games, but we'll get there when we get there. I'm just going to go in order that they're listed here. It's not by game release or anything, but the criteria in which I'm looking for, I guess, is, everyone kind of has their own favorite Zelda game, and I want to look at what this Link accomplishes throughout his run through like the history of Zelda. So that'll be something I take into a factor. So it's kind of an unfair advantage for Links who have been in multiple games, but all that's going to be taken into account. So first we're going to go with the Minish Cap Link, which he's only been in one game, and that was the Game Boy Advance game, the Minish Cap. So I'm probably going to put him at a C for a couple of reasons. So he does forge the Four Sword, which is a sword that can split you into four people, which does become an important factor through The Legend of Zelda. I don't have the Four Swords Adventures Link, I'm realizing, but we're doing pretty much just accounting for the single player games or whatever. So the two Four Swords Links aren't in here, so forgive me on that. But anyway, I'm gonna put him at a C tier. He has one adventure. He doesn't ever get like the Master Sword. He does forge the Four Sword, which is pretty important, and he does defeat Vati, but Vati obviously comes back. So his accomplishments in like the history of Hyrule, I feel like aren't as significant as some of the other Links here. Not terrible by any means, but nothing too crazy. So Wind Waker Link is here, and I'm going to put him up in an S tier. So Wind Waker Link has two adventures. He's in the Wind Waker, and he's also in Phantom Hourglass. Now, what he does in the Wind Waker is pretty important. Keep in mind, he's just this regular kid. He has no bloodline to any of the previous heroes. He's completely on his own, yet he is able to assemble the Triforce of Courage, able to not only pull the Master Sword, but fully power it with the help of the sages. He defeats and kills Ganondorf, who, until I guess Breath of the Wild, depending on where we think that takes place, but essentially he kills Ganondorf. He's down at the bottom of the ocean. We haven't heard from him since. So not only does he do all that in the Wind Waker, but yeah, he doesn't do too much. I mean, in Phantom Hourglass, he has a whole other adventure where he, defeats Bellum and all of that, but that's kind of like in this parallel world. So not only does he have that, but as we come to find out in Spirit Tracks, although this Link is not in Spirit Tracks, he finds a whole new land. He establishes a whole new kingdom with Tetra from Wind Waker to have a whole new Hyrule and a whole new land. So I feel like this Link has done a lot to deserve an S tier. So it's like he kills Ganon, not only wins his side adventure, but then establishes a whole new kingdom. I think that's pretty impactful as far as like the entire history of Hyrule. So, and all that coming from nothing. He doesn't have any powerful bloodline or anything. He just does it all on his own without pretty much any help. So that's pretty big. So I think he deserves an S tier. Breath of the Wild Link. This is a little bit harder to place because we know he's going to have a second adventure in Breath of the Wild 2, but we don't really know what that consists of yet. So I think just leaving him at B for now is fine. He sleeps for 100 years, so Zelda's really carrying the bag here for a while, holding off Ganondorf, holding off Calamity Ganon for 100 years while, Link's chilling and taking a nap. So I want to give Zelda a lot more credit through most of Breath of the Wild. He does, obviously fix all the Divine Beasts. But again, the Divine Beasts, if you, beat them all and take on, in like the intended ending of the game, the Divine Beasts like take off half of, Calamity Ganon's health. So this Link, Breath of the Wild Link, he's great, but is he the best Link? I don't think so, but that could very well change with Breath of the Wild 2, but I think he's fine. Nothing too insane, but, he does obviously do a lot. Every Link's going to do a lot, but when you're comparing them all, I feel like Breath of the Wild Link, until we see what he does in the next game, it's a little tough to figure out where to put him. NES Link for Zelda 1 and Zelda 2. I feel like he has to be an S tier. Not only is he the OG from a gameplay perspective, but he does have 2 adventures. He pieces together the Triforce, he kills Ganon, and as far as we know, that's the last we ever see of Ganon until, like I said, if we just put Breath of the Wild to the side, he straight up kills Ganon, and then he stops the resurrection. Most games, right? Obviously they're out to get his blood or whatever to resurrect Ganon, but he prevents that from happening, I guess, unless you get a game over screen. But I would say the canonical ending is that Ganon never gets resurrected in Zelda 2. So he does a lot. He gets he gets the Triforce of Wisdom, and then he pieces it together, and then he gets the Triforce of Courage at the end. So I think he technically gets the whole Triforce, but not really. I don't know, but he has his whole adventure, doesn't have Ganon get resurrected in Zelda 2, gets the Triforce of Courage, goes through a lot of trials in Zelda 2 to get that Triforce Courage, beats Shadow Link, beats Thunderbird. He does a lot, and not only that, he saves 2 different Princess Zeldas. I almost forgot to mention that. The Zelda from Zelda 2 is a completely different Zelda who's been asleep for like a long time. So he saves 2 different Princess Zeldas. So that's pretty good in my opinion. Okay, we have a Link to the Past Link. This one is interesting. So he does have 2 adventures. Again, one is a dream with Link's Awakening, but he still does have 2 accomplishments because he does save the Windfish, I guess, in Link's Awakening. But he also makes a wish. He defeats Ganon. And it's a little I'm stuck between S and A. I feel like he's got to be an S, right? So A Link to the Past Link, I feel like he has to be an S, right? He is able to make a wish on the Triforce. He defeats and kills Ganon, although we know he technically comes back later. But then Link's Awakening, he awakens the Windfish. He has a whole adventure there. I mean, this is a pretty iconic Link. I feel like he has to be an S tier. I'd put him on like the lower end of S tier, but he does a lot. He pretty much saves everyone in Hyrule, like I said, after he's able to make a wish on the Triforce. So wielding the full Triforce is pretty epic. So I got to give him credit there. So I'll put Link to the Past, I guess, Link to the Past Link at the low end of S tier. Okay. Oracle's Link, I feel like I got to give him an A. I'm not a big fan of the Oracle games. I am going to replay them soon for the, my review series that I'm doing. If you haven't seen that yet, check it out. I'm doing in-depth reviews of every single Zelda game, ranking them on a score system, and then eventually it's going to compile this ultimate ranking list. So Phantom Hourglass and Wind Waker are out now if you want to check those out. For Oracle Link, he does have 2 adventures, right? He saves, was it Labrina and Holodrum, I think? Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But 2 different regions, and that's like, what is it? I forget their names. It's like anyway, he defeats two of the main bosses. It's like Varen and Onyx, I want to say. I could be wrong. Oracle's a little hazy for me, but he has two full adventures, saves two different regions. And then not only that, the like final ending after completing both games is he does defeat Ganon, a resurrected Ganon that's like this mindless beast. He does defeat him too, so that's a lot. And this is the Link where some people think that A Link to the Past Link and Oracle's Link is the same. It's debated heavily, but based on the latest encyclopedia in the Japanese translation, the current thinking now is that it's a separate Link. There's also dialogue in the game that has Zelda like meeting Link for the first time, so it's, at this point, I'm going to go with the Japanese translation. It was a mistranslation in the English version, for those who don't know. So I would just stand by Oracle's Link being a different Link. It just, right now, seems to be the way the wind's blowing, so that's what I'm going with. So yeah, he does a lot. Two adventures, even though they happen like one after the other, he still has two full adventures and then defeats Ganon. Doesn't technically wield the Master Sword because I think it's like a non-canonical Master Sword. Anyway, Spirit Tracks Link, I think, gets a C. You know, he saves this new Hyrule. He defeats like this demon Malladus, but I don't think his story is as impactful as some of the other Links. And for that, I would say that, you know, he's a C tier. I feel like he's one where there's just less of a conversation around this Link, and, you know, how, you know, compared to the other Links, he just definitely seems like maybe the lowest I would position a Link in terms of like what they did throughout the history of Hyrule. I definitely think Minish Cap Link, at least forging the Four Sword is a pretty good accomplishment. A Link Between Worlds Link, I think, is probably a B. He's got one adventure. Oh no, he has two adventures, I'm sorry. But one of them is Triforce Heroes, which is a little ridiculous. So I think, you know, he does defeat this Yuga Ganon, which is pretty impactful. So that's why I'd say he's like at a B. I wouldn't put him at the same level as, you know, Oracle Link, because his second adventure is a little frivolous in comparison to his first adventure. So yeah, Triforce Heroes kind of knocks him down a notch, but I still think he's a solid B. Okay, let us go to Skyward Sword Link. I would definitely put Skyward Sword Link at an A. So he is one of two 3D, I shouldn't say 3D, but if you think about it, every main series Zelda game, generally Link has been able to have two adventures, right? NES Link had Zelda 2. A Link to the Past Link also had Link's Awakening. Then Ocarina of Time Link had Majora's Mask. Wind Waker Link has Phantom Hourglass. But then we have Skyward Sword Link and Twilight Princess Link. They don't have two adventures. But this Link does a lot, right? The Link from Skyward Sword not only forges the Master Sword, which is one of the most important factors in all of Zelda, he also, I believe, makes a wish on the Triforce, basically gets the people in the sky to come down and start establishing Hyrule as we know it. So for one adventure, I don't think there's any Link that does more in one adventure than maybe Skyward Sword Link. So for that, he gets an A. I feel like if he had one more game with something he did, if he had another side quest, I'd definitely put him in S tier. Some people may even debate me and say Skyward Sword Link, even though in one game he does so much, he should get S tier. But I think he's like A plus. Like I'll put him at A plus tier. Ocarina of Time Link, I think, has to be an S. A plus, maybe. I don't know. He has such an impact on everything, right? I feel like he has to be, I don't know, it's between him and Wind Waker Link as maybe the most important links in my opinion. But again, please, if you disagree, let me know. But Ocarina of Time Link, let's take a, he plays such a key role in multiple timelines, right? So not only does he defeat Ganondorf and defeat Ganon essentially at the end of Ocarina of Time, which then plays a fact. Yes, he leaves the adult timeline for the timeline people. I know I love to get into this stuff, and then that kind of leads to what happens with Wind Waker at the end. But then he's also plays a key factor in Ganondorf being executed in Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, I'm sorry. So he alters two timelines forever just based on his actions, and then even just dying at one point does that whole what if timeline with all the NES and Game Boy games and all that. But, as far as his accomplishments, we can look at the fact that, again, he defeats Ganondorf in one era. He also warns the kingdom of Ganondorf in another era, saves Termina on his side adventure. And not only that, within those two games, but based on heavy evidence, and I think the Hyrule Encyclopedia and Historia also allude to, is that he also helps Twilight Princess Link by being the hero Shade, who trains him with all the sword techniques and basically prepares him to defeat Ganon. So this Link does a lot. He, saves two worlds. He saves like three worlds, I guess, depending on, if you're looking at timelines, and then you look at Majora's Mask. He does so much, and then also gives back, eventually, I guess, has a family because Twilight Princess Link is a part of that bloodline. And then, trains him in the afterlife, which is crazy. So I think Ocarina of Time Link does so much that he deserves to be in the S tier. Now, where do we put Twilight Princess Link? Twilight Princess Link, I think, has to be A tier. I know there's a lot of Twilight Princess fans that may disagree with me, but let's run it down. Okay, so he's got to give him the bloodline factor. Like I said, he is a descendant of Ocarina of Time Link, so he's inherently basically more powerful than most Links. Like I said, Wind Waker Link came from nothing, but this Link comes from a strong bloodline, so he automatically possesses the Triforce of Courage, which is why he's able to be a wolf when all the Twilight kind of takes over the world. But, we give him credit for basically he kills Ganon in another timeline. He kills Ganondorf. He defeats multiple versions of Ganon. He defeats Zant, who's another powerful character. And again, the fact that he is strong enough to withstand the Twilight world as a human or whatever, Hylian, and then be able to turn to a wolf instead of just kind of being this spirit that can't do anything. So you got to give a lot of credit to Twilight Princess Link. Again, he's a Link that only had one game. Definitely, if this Link had another adventure, it would put him over the top. I mean, maybe I guess it's the same Link from Crossbow Training, maybe, but I don't know how much credit you want to give to that. I don't even know if it's the same Link. I still need to play that game. I do have it, but I still need to play it. So I think that's kind of where we stand with the Links. Definitely, this is a much more flexible debate for me. I could be talked into moving things around a lot more. It's a little bit of a harder tier list to put together than some of the other ones. So maybe my confidence level isn't as strong. So let's make this a discussion. Definitely let me know where you guys would place every version of Link. I know I left the Four Swords Links out there, but it's a little hazy when there's four of them. You know the drill. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Definitely check out some of my other tier list videos and my other Zelda videos. There's a lot to check out, so definitely like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.